welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of the Squorm N Paxhydermatous. This audio podcast is part of the Besieged Squad. This audio podcast is part of a Storm Robotics production. Through this audio podcast, I look back and some reflections on the ASPN IPNA Joint webinar that had taken place in online, and so the webinar, this particular webinar, the joint webinar, looked at an overview where speakers and presenters were in discussion about had a discussion in and around the theme on updates surrounding CKD and in which CKD, a chronic kidney disease, which has made it into the World Health Organization, and so the presenters highlighted or informed in around looked in and around and talked about the sort of lessons learned from the history of the kidney health resolution and what is a resolution from, and what is sort of the resolution, and what that resolution is and had been in context of the World Health Organization, and also the history of the kidney health resolution in context of pediatric kidney care. So the speaker and presenter talked about where the World Health Organization had six continental and regional offices that manage different healthcare initiatives, and talked also about how they formed a letter which had the intention to be put forward to the WHO and the PAHO, which is more particular for a particular region in around an organization similar to that of WHO, and where the speaker talked about their efforts alongside talked about their efforts in highlighting context of CKD, and aligned in line to other particular around other particular healthcare conditions that had already been WHO or World Health Organization listed. So the speaker presenter talked about their efforts alongside conditions such as cervical cancer, Chagas disease, chemical safety, chemical safety in around child health, childhood and adolescent health, cholera, and climate change and health, SARS-CoV-2, and cultural diversity and health, at the same time, the speaker and presenter had talked about how between 2024 duration during 2024 and early 2025, they drafted this a paper that was titled "Reducing the burden of non-communicable diseases through the promotion of kidney health and strengthening prevention and control and prevention and prevention and control. And it was a drafted a drafted sort of a drafted sort of paper that was in and around for the WHO, and they talked about the particular journey that the journey that they made in putting that in putting that sort of in putting that sort of paper or report together toward developing the effort, and where they talked about the developing that effort in around in around different aspects of different evidences, going back as far as 19 in around early in around the late 1980s, and in the beginning of the 1990s, or in the beginning of the noughties. And the structure of the kidney health resolution, which consisted of four pillars, which included integration into health systems, secondly, risk factor control, and thirdly, workforce and monitoring, and then looking at research and technical support. The speaker and presenter then talked about how this had led to the main theme of the IPNA, looking at optimal care for all children and young people with kidney disease, which had become which had become IPNA's mission statement. And then the speaker also talked about the speaker and presenter, and through the joint webinar, had also talked about how the WHO resolution had been given given the kidney specialty, the kidney specialty in context of children and young people as sort of a seat at the World Health Organization table, to ensure that every child with kidney disease is seen here and cared for. Overall, the seminar had speakers and presenting highlight highlight overall the webinar had the speaker and presenter highlighting updates on clinical medicine linked to the kidney and around the kidney specialty for children and young people, and scientific evidence. The speaker and presenter then closed informing of how healthcare professionals should also be integrating practices to advance awareness and healthcare for all children and young people globally. In as part of this particular audio podcast, there will be a link to the WHO resolution paper that the healthcare professional had that the healthcare professional had put forward in around how the WHO, the World Health Organization, had formed a sort of an official WHO resolution paper. So there will be a link as part of this audio podcast, where viewers and listeners can access and check out this particular informative paper by this healthcare professional who spoke at this joint ASPN IPNA webinar, and in all of this joint ASPN IPNA webinar. So that draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast, as part of the Squorm N Paxhydermatous. This audio podcast as part of the Besiege the Besiege Squad. This audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production.